Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in.
Okay, happy Wednesday everybody. First up, let's continue with our ongoing coverage of nations around the world introducing fairly mild restrictions on inbound travellers from the People's Republic of China. The EU is now expected to impose pre-departure COVID-19 tests on travellers from China within days to try to prevent a surge in infections from spreading to Europe. France, Spain and Italy, as we have seen, have already introduced controls on visitors from the PRC. According to a European Commission spokesperson, the, quote, overwhelming majority, end quote, of the EU members asked for the move at a meeting of EU Health Ministry officials held on Tuesday in Brussels. The move comes as Beijing rejects an EU offer to send Western-made COVID-19 vaccines. China's foreign ministry on Tuesday said that the country did not need European vaccines, saying Beijing has, quote, ample, end quote, supplies of its own jabs, which are seeing, quote, strengthening clinical efficacy. End quote. A crisis meeting is now being held today, Wednesday, in the EU on this issue and will decide what coordinated measures will be applied to PRC travellers across the bloc. If the move goes ahead, the EU will join the US, Japan and other mostly developed nations in the West and Asia, restricting PRC travellers as China wrestles with the largest COVID outbreak the world has seen to date. Quote, the PRC government has no one but itself to blame for this because of its lack of transparency, though, as I wrote yesterday, I think these restrictions and testing requirements are more performative than substantive, more for domestic political reasons and neither constructive or effective. End quote. Chinese state media has published a slew of stories in recent days attacking the countries which have introduced restrictions, calling them ineffective, discriminatory and politically motivated, and proclaiming that Beijing has always been a paragon of transparency and honesty throughout the pandemic. Meanwhile, China's critical megacity, Shanghai, may be past its COVID peak, allowing for the slow normalization of the city and, hopefully, recoupling with much of the world after January 8th. Chen Erzhen, a top doctor and member of Shanghai's expert advisory panel, told press this week at a special event that 70% of Shanghai's population likely now has been infected. Subway usage data from Baidu Inc. backs this up. This week, the number of people taking the subway in Shanghai has steadily increased, suggesting people returning to work and recreation. The megacities of Guangzhou, Shenzhen and Nanjing also saw rebounds in trips this week, with Beijing and Tianjin in the north seeing rebounds late last week. A report published on Monday by Shanghai Jiaotong University and Ruijin Hospital calculated that this first massive wave of COVID should have passed in several major cities before the Spring Festival, which starts on the 22nd of January this year. However, as we discussed yesterday, the report warns that rural areas are at greater risk of a surge and are less well-resourced to deal with it. Once again, we have no way of knowing what the death rate is. This is an area where we are very blind and need to lean on anecdotal evidence to get some idea. The surging cost of cremation in major cities is one such anecdotal clue. Bloomberg News reports yesterday that after calling a crematorium in Beijing, an employee told their reporter that cremation can be arranged within 3 days at the cost of 68,000 yuan, with same-day service going for 88,000 yuan. This is between 20 and 30 times the usual rate of cremation. The outlet reports that the employee expressed to them, quote, bodies are overflowing everywhere. You'll have to wait a month if you don't want to pay. End quote. Next up, the Chinese economy. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit that like button. And as always, anyone who can go that extra mile and help me keep this channel financially sustainable and keep producing these episodes every day, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. For the community that already does this, a huge thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for for the ongoing support. Now let's move through several economic and financial updates. In the latest effort by China and Singapore to deepen financial cooperation, the two countries have listed together two new ETFs as part of the ETF link between the Singapore Exchange and the Shenzhen Stock Exchange. Quote, "This is an exciting chapter for both exchanges given the rising prominence of ETFs in investor strategies and growing demand for portfolio diversification into broader geographies and sectors." End quote. The ETF link collaboration between the Singapore and Shenzhen exchanges dates back to the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding in December of 2021. The idea is to link locally listed ETFs to ones listed on the other exchange, allowing domestic issuers to tap into cross-border capital flows. This is part of Beijing's slow and steady efforts to further open up its financial markets and facilitate cross-border investments. Next up, we have more bad December data. On Monday, we examined very disappointing official PMI numbers for the month of December. Now we have the Caixin China General Manufacturing Managers Index, PMI, which seeks to give a more independent snapshot of the country's manufacturing sector. This independent snapshot, like the official data we saw on Monday, is also not very pretty. The PMI came in at 49 in December, down from 49.4 the previous month, and remaining below 50 for 5 months in a row. That is, in contraction. In the Caixin report accompanying the data, the analysts explained that, quote, "A breakdown of the PMI survey shows that manufacturing supply, demand, and employment all shrank in December," end quote, adding that both output and total new orders posted declines for the 4th and 5th straight month, respectively, as, quote, "Fallout from the pandemic hit both production and sales. Overseas demand continued to weaken due to COVID and sluggish global economic conditions," end quote. None of these findings should be surprising, and employment is not looking strong either. Quote, "Employment shrank for the 9th straight month with no sign of a rebound, with the corresponding sub-index logging its second worst reading in 34 months. End quote. Next up, at an annual industry work meeting held on yesterday, China State Railway Group Corp., the nation's massive railway operator, said that it expects revenues to return to 2019 levels in 2023. The state-run giant announced that it will revamp 2 national railway construction and that more than 3,000 kilometers of new railway lines will be put into operation this year, including 2,500 kilometers of high-speed railways. A total of 102 railway projects are planned in the outline of the 14th five-year plan, 2021 through 2025. Meanwhile, according to a new report by global real estate consultancy Cushman & Wakefield, net retail growth of prime office space in China's second great financial and manufacturing megacity after Shanghai, Guangzhou, also known as Canton in English, slipped into reverse in 2022 for the first time in 10 years. The vacancy rate for prime office buildings in Guangzhou rose 6.4 percentage points in 2022 to 14%. The net leased area in Grade A office buildings in Guangzhou declined by 1,130 square meters in 2022 from 2021. An executive at a commercial property developer speaking to domestic Chinese financial media outlet Yicai said that the decline reflected efforts in high-end service industries to cut costs, expressing, quote, "It was a tough year for Guangzhou's economy in 2022," end quote. The Cushman & Wakefield report also showed that vacancy rates for prime offices increased in Beijing, Shanghai, Wuhan, and Chongqing. In a report published last week, Chinese consultancy eHouse China estimated that investment in office buildings nationwide likely declined 12% in 2022, year on year. In tomorrow's episode, we will have more on the ongoing housing crisis. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I will see you all tomorrow.